Welcome to Pique Your Interest, your go-to podcast for all things mortgage and real estate. Hosted by Tanner Greenwald and Tim Malaskis. We bring you expert insights to help you buy, sell, and invest with confidence. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Tim, and I have a very special guest here today from Eagle Title, Brad Walsh. Brad, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. We got a couple of topics we want to talk about today, but I think we'll start with the thing that's it's the rage right now. Everybody's talking about it. Most people love it. Some people, I guess, don't. But e-closings. Talk to me about e-closings.
E-closings are interesting. I think and I think for me, the big part about it is most consumers don't really understand what an e-closing is, because leading into the transaction, whether they're signing a listing agreement, whether they're signing a buyer agency agreement, everything's being done via DocuSign. Yeah. And so most people think at this point, they're like, well, I can just sign everything that way. And there's really a lot more that goes into it, specifically with notarization. It can come down to identity authentication and verifying who the parties actually are in the transaction. These still are really big legal documents that are obligating people to repay large sums of money. Right. So they need to make sure that the lenders are protected, the title company's protected, and we're also seeing a massive ramp up of fraud right now in the United States. And because of how big our economy is, the world is kind of attacking us from that perspective. So this is a natural area for people to get involved with that. And we've seen specifically in Maryland, and then even kind of in the region, we've seen the use of remote online notary come into effect. It actually was going back to almost like 2015, 2016. We were working on our remote online notary laws. We actually had a law in place leading into when COVID hit. It was supposed to go into effect October of that year. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, and they're like, all right, we're going to do this emergency order to allow for it. The problem was that no one was actually ready for what that was. And I think even more globally, when it comes to remote online notarization, I think there's a phenomenal use for it. The opportunities surrounded are great, but people really have to understand what it is, what it's not. Yeah. It's not someone just logging in whenever they want necessarily to execute a document, and how do they authenticate their identity is a whole other sub-animal on that. But the biggest issue we're running right now when it talks about lending guidelines and what you can use a remote online notary, or what we refer to as a RON, for versus not, is these are all state-by-state laws that are these notary laws. Yeah. And so the Congress put in a bill up called I think it was the Secure Notarization Act. Okay. And that was, I think, 2 years ago at this point. It has not actually gotten voted on. Yeah. The crazy part about that is if they just came out with a federal law that governed it, that everyone had to fall under, we'd probably see much more widespread use of remote online notary and electronic closings as a result. Because right now, every state's different. They've got some nuances to them, but it really is a complicated process. And from when you start looking at the backside of it, no one wants to be like, well, we did it over here, it was okay, but this state wasn't okay. Like, they don't want to get a buyback on a loan as a result.
And that makes sense. I mean, nothing fast happens with the government, right? It just gets tied down in bureaucratic red tape, and
correct.
Yeah, nothing moves quickly.
Let's talk about some of the uses of it. Example, all right, someone signing from Asia. Before you'd either try and send them documents, get them, execute them abroad, which is an absolute disaster. I've seen 1 out of 100 actually go well. Right. And because the notarial acknowledgments being done abroad have to be done in a very particular way. They're not easy. They're not cheap. And it's not like, hey, I can just go down to the corner post office and find someone to do this for me. So a lot of times you got to go to an embassy, and if there's not an embassy close by, there's some other ways to do it, but it gets really funky. Yep. I think for us, we have such a presence of military homebuyers that are PCSing to our area, where they may have never seen the house and they're buying here, but a lot of times, they either come in, they're looking, and they fly in for a weekend, do some house hunting, and get back on the road, back to wherever they're stationed. Well, the logistics around that are just terrible because either they're trying to get someone to act as a power of attorney, and they may or may not know someone in that area they're getting PCS to. That creates some real logistical challenges around it. So I actually, those are the types of things where I really like where this technology is going. Yes. Because the consumer's not having to rely on someone else to sign for them, and and especially a VA loan package can be pretty large.
Yes.
I had this lady one time. She was I think she was actually 91 years old, signing for her son and daughter-in-law who were still in Germany, and she had to sign for both of them on a loan package. I think she had to sign their name with the power of attorney verbiage. It was something like 214 times by the time you got through the whole package for both of them. Like that's not a good consumer experience either.
No, it's less than ideal.
But I like being able to talk to the people who are actually going to be the owners of the house. It's about controlling the experience a little bit more, and like really being able to make sure that they're understanding the key points of those terms on the loan, and really, because I think that affects their home buy experience at the very end of the day.
It absolutely does.
It absolutely is a big part of it, as far as I'm concerned, and I think it's education and experience.
Yes.
And both of them are equally important to me. I think you talk about, and even if you're not doing a remote online notary closing, as an example, there's other types of e-closings that are available. We have something that's called a hybrid closing, which First Home's been doing for many years now, which I think is just excellent. The consumers can log on before they actually come to the settlement office and execute a portion of their documents that don't require notarization. So now they've seen the documents ahead of time.
Yes.
They're not walking into a room, meeting with someone maybe that they don't know, and just getting a whole bunch of documents put in front of them. They have some time to look at them. If everyone's got a duty to read.
Right.
How many people actually do that is not. But people ask me all the time. They're like, "Well, does anyone ever go through this whole loan package?" I'm like, "Absolutely, people do." And
sure they do.
I don't have a problem with that at all because it's their money, their obligation. I want them to make sure they understand what they're getting into. So I like that part where people can actually consume that material ahead of time. And frankly, it makes the closing go a lot smoother. So that experience part of it gets there where they're less focused on the documents at that point and more on the joy of buying the house, getting over that accomplishment. And look, the market the past few years, there's been a lot of people who've written on a lot of homes and didn't get them. So it really is a celebration when you finally get to that moment that you're this is where I want to be.
It sure can be.
That's a big part of it for us.
Yeah.
A lot of times when I sit down with someone, I can look and see if they're a first-time home buyer.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like doing first-time home buyers because they don't have that experience. I actually kind of prefer it now at this point in my career because I've learned so much through my experience that I can now give to them. Yeah. And it kind of sounds cheesy, but frankly, I enjoy those closings way more than the person who's like, I bought 15 homes. Right. I don't need to, you don't need to tell me anything. And then, halfway through the closing, they're like, hold on, what's my payment? What's if they just let you kind of go through it, but with first-time home buyers, it's our opportunity to give them the knowledge and give them the experience. Yeah. That part is huge because most of the time people don't understand. One of the things I cover in a first-time home buyer closing, we'll get to the first payment letter, we'll get to the initial escrow account disclosure statement. And I'm like, look, I want to highlight a couple things for you. Just because you have a fixed rate mortgage doesn't mean that your payment's not going to change. Right. Your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance will adjust over time. They're not going to be fixed in. So, and the reason for that was you'd get these calls from people a year into their loan, and all of a sudden they're doing their first escrow analysis, and the taxes went up by $120 a year, so their payment went up by $10 a month or whatever it is, and all of a sudden they're calling and being like, you told me I had a fixed rate mortgage, and you're like, you absolutely do. However, but I think that that changes their experience because all of a sudden they don't trust the people that were in the game if
Right.
if you didn't explain that to them. And so I think, in our industry as a whole, it's weird because only 11% of consumers use the realtor that they use to buy their house to sell their house. That's a low stickiness factor.
It's astoundingly low.
Like, it's pretty bad. But you want them to come back for another transaction.
Yes.
You want them to come back for more. And when I read our client surveys every day, I love it when someone's like, this is my third or fourth transaction with Eagle, and I just love it because I keep coming back and getting the same experience.
Yeah.
To me, those repeat consumers, the cost to acquire a consumer is quite high in our industry.
Yeah.
And the more that you can get them to trust and do that, and I think education's a part of that trust process.
It is.
When they feel like you're giving them as much as they either want and or need,
Yeah.
that becomes a different part of the ballgame for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree that I think it's more fun to work with first-time home buyers. I would think most real estate agents would tell you the same thing. If they're a buyer's agent, they would tell you the same thing. There's just a level of excitement that you can feed off of at closings like that, through the entire process actually, but specifically at closing, you can feed off of that energy versus, the guy that was like, oh, I bought 15 homes before, like you mentioned. That's not the energy you want to feed off of, right? Like, that doesn't excite other people in the room.
With artificial intelligence, the game is changing rapidly.
Yes, it is.
And I don't care if it's whether you're talking about in the title aspect of it, whether it's in the mortgage component, or even how homes are being staged, how homes are being valued. We have a lot of different things that are around right now that we didn't have 12 months ago.
Right.
We didn't have 2 months ago. And so it's pretty interesting. I have some friends down in North Carolina. They actually just launched the first AI-based title search product for their programs down there. And I was talking to him about it the other day, and he's like, it's just really exciting to see what it can do. Now, it's at the baby steps of it.
Right.
But that's rapidly changing. And so anyone who thinks that they know what they're doing today, I mean, it's pretty wild change that's going on.
I mean, if you fast forward a year, that entire situation is going to be completely different, or 5 years from now. Like, it will be astounding the amount of progress that you will see from 2025 until pick a year, 2026, 2030, whatever it is, completely different.
It's I was out. One of our underwriters is Fidelity National Title Group, and I was out at a seminar with them recently, and their CEO is sitting there talking to us, and he effectively came out and goes, "Look, we realized how important AI is. We now have a chief AI officer in the organization." Think 5 years ago, that concept that someone would have a C-suite level person at that table just to be there for AI and looking at how it's being integrated in every component of that organization. Yeah. That tells you where this is going and how quickly it's going to be going there. And whether, I think the utility of it, again, as long as we're using it to create efficiencies, it can get really neat. And, you can, there's a lot of products where it's going to help with the loan underwriting. It's going to help with the title underwriting. It's going to, it not going to totally remove the human component to it, but it can definitely speed some stuff up on how we get there. And those efficiencies can be passed back to the consumer, which is, I think, where we're ultimately going to see at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's the goal. I think the goal is to get it bigger, faster, stronger, without having to employ more people, and then those people can actually get more done.
The way we look at it is, I'm not looking to reduce headcount. Yeah, I'm actually looking to repurpose headcount. Yeah, one of the features, our operating system, it's about to have something rolled out where when a package comes off the table, you can essentially scan it in, and it will do a quality control review of the file to make sure that there's all the initials there, all the signatures, all the dates. There's no scratch throughs. Like, as the notarial acknowledgement has been filled out correctly. Yeah. Well, think about the cost savings, and that really comes from time savings, frankly, of having to chase people down. But that can all be done while the consumer is still in your office. Right. Like, that is, and I think I was trying to think about my partners in the business and how it's going to affect them. From like the post-closing department at First Home, like
they're going to love it.
It is just going to be huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're not chasing down corrections. They're not, chasing down these other components to it. But like stuff like that's going to get really neat. And what we're going to allow us to do is then we can focus more on the consumer's experience, and you can crank your customer service game up.
Right.
Because people are not going to be as focused on these individualized tasks. They're going to be more focused on, well, how is the consumer experiencing us? How can we really, help them understand what's going on and ease their concerns? Because there are a lot of moving parts with them on that. So,
all right. Well, Brad, thanks for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, man. It's been great. So, guys, Brad Walsh, Eagle Title, if you know all your title needs. And again, I'm Tim at First Home. If there's anything I can do to help you, Brad and I are just a call away. We'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.